Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaRavelis and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link down in the description to the page, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience Podcast. My name is Joshua Ravelis. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down with fellow enthusiasts to talk about what's going on in the technology, business, and gaming world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Ravelis. I'm your host as usual. And I'm going to start by a few things before we get right into the episode. So, as you guys can probably tell, based on what I uploaded on the Instagram page, this episode and pretty much the foreseeable future for every other episode will be using the XLR setup. Obviously, the Blue Yeti is not going to be retired. You know, if I really need to, I'll probably pull out the Blue Yeti for emergency projects, or I'll still use it when I'm on my PC streaming. But yeah, I think overall the sound quality is going to be a lot better because now I don't have to really worry about background noises in the episodes anymore because the mic seems to not pick it up. But another downer, I think probably a downer if you want to call it that. Well, definitely is a downer. As you guys can probably tell if you've been keeping up with me on my social medias, our basketball team lost and we're kind of salty about it. And like, it's kind of sad. We're really salty about it, especially because depending on if you ask us, really, we kind of got screwed by the refs, but that's aside from the point. Let's get on to today's episode. So, today's topic, based on what you guys voted on, we're going to be talking about the iPad Pro. And to be honest, this is an episode I've been wanting to do for a while now because, in my opinion, the iPad Pro is arguably one of the single... I'm kind of figuring out how to place it without kind of making it seem more of an absolute statement, but the iPad Pro is definitely making some huge impacts when it comes to people wanting to do mobile editing, or specifically video or even audio editing. And really, we have to review the history of the iPad Pro first because it's kind of an anomaly if you think about it. Because when the initial iPad Pro came out in 2016, it was mainly used for artists. The whole premise behind it was to promote artists. It's literally what it was all meant for, with the Apple Pencil and everything, was to draw. It wasn't meant for actually editing videos and like things like that. Realistically, it wasn't. Like, I feel like there probably were some people that figured out how to do it, but it wasn't prominent as it is now. And it's interesting when you look at it realistically, because when they introduced the 2017 iPad Pro, the 10.5 inch, which is the one that I have, that's where we started to notice the difference. We started to see people using it for much more than what it was intended to be because of the 120 hertz display. Obviously, yes, the 120 hertz display was mainly added to improve gaming on the iPad and even drawing with the Apple Pencil. It reduced the latency by a good amount. But you get the point. It was meant to do that. But then you have people like Henny Tha Bizness, who I could run down this entire man's credentials and I feel like it still wouldn't even do the man justice because of how much he's accomplished with only using an iPad. Henny is already a 4-time Grammy-nominated, award-winning, multi-platinum producer. And for the past few years, he's been literally doing all his work on an iPad and recently upgraded to the iPad Pros when they came out. He started with a 10.5 inch and then, upgraded to the 2018 one that came out last year. And Henny's been doing some amazing work with the iPad Pro, guys. I'm going to be real. I would say that I would not be surprised if the iPad Pro becomes an industry standard for music production. Especially because when you have people like Henny who are making literal music for the likes of Drake, 50 Cent, Chris Brown, like the list goes on. When you have him making music like that on an iPad, to be honest, guys, like that's crazy. Like it's absurd, to be honest. A lot of people, realistically, like I have a couple of buddy of mine that are audio engineers and producers as well. And even they looked at me and they're like, bro, I don't see how that would work. How would you shut down an entire studio filled with professional grade equipment and only do everything on an iPad? And I show them Henny's story and they find it interesting because they're like, that doesn't make sense. due to the limitations of iOS with the iPad Pro, which that's something I'm going to talk about, is kind of weird how he's able to pull this off. Now, like I mentioned, the limitations of iOS is a big factor when addressing the iPad Pro, because the iPad Pro, most of the time, I'm specifically referring to the 10.5 inch, the 2017 model, and the 2018 models. When they came out, they were on par with the power of MacBooks, or the 2017 was actually as strong as the late, if I'm correct, based on the Geekbench scores, it was on par or actually better than a MacBook Pro of 2017, or I think it was 2016 or 2017, somewhere in that range, I think. And then obviously the 2018 were actually on par in terms of single core with the MacBook Pros. It was close to it, and that's really impressive, especially because when we talk about the 2018 MacBook Pros, they had a lot of issues when it came to rendering. Like, realistically, with the Core i9 models, these things got pretty hot, and you couldn't really use them without having them in a refrigerator. And people posted videos of them able to render 4K 60 videos on the iPad Pro, the 2018 model, and it didn't have a single issue. And to me, that's crazy, because it didn't make a single sound. It didn't. It was completely quiet. It wasn't hot either. And it handled it like a champ, and it did it in almost real time too, which is absurd. But I think that's kind of one of the benefits that makes it stick out. Not only is it small, it's clearly smaller than a laptop, even if you get the keyboard cover with it. It has a good amount of features that make it stick out, that I do believe, realistically, it is the best tablet you can buy. I'm sorry if you love Android tablets, they suck in comparison to the iPad, specifically the iPad Pro, and even the newer iPads now, when we include the iPad Air 3 and the Mini 5, when we include those, and yes, Android tablets, I'm sorry, you guys got nothing on the iPads now. You don't. But what makes the iPad Pro stick out, besides like having quad speakers, having 6 gigabytes of RAM with the newer ones, and mine has 4, which is mine is the 2017 model, the late 2017, and the new ones have 6, and obviously the big terabyte of storage and things like that, and the big beefy processors as well. Besides all of that, the main selling point of the iPad Pro is that it is considered a laptop replacement. Now, whether you want to call it a laptop replacement or not, that's personally up to you. Like, whatever you use a laptop for. If you're using a laptop for just watching videos or writing up documents, then yes, I would clearly say, yes, it is a laptop replacement in that aspect, because that's basically what I use. I don't take my HP Omen 15 to class anymore. I just take my iPad with me to write notes if I have to write notes or look up documents or things like that. But if it comes down to, if you have a laptop for gaming, or say a laptop for CAD designing and things like that, then yes, my opinion still stands that the iPad Pro cannot replace a laptop. And we run into the main area that a lot of people could consider it, because it's a media production device. It can consume media really well. It has a great speaker setup. It has great screen. Obviously, the Apple Pencil is also great too. It has a lot of great accessories. But the media production is what's huge with the iPad Pro. It is. If you are somebody who wants to make videos and edit them on the go with beefy hardware, but not needing to carry on a big laptop, and you don't want to spend money on a MacBook, then yes, my opinion is the iPad Pro is a great choice. Obviously, yes, keyboard covers and everything like that. My opinion is you can go with the Apple one if you really want to, if you want to go all Apple. But another good option would be the Logitech ones, because Logitech actually makes really good ones. The only downside to them is, they're connected with Bluetooth, and they do drain battery from your iPad, but obviously the iPad is very power efficient. It has a good big battery in it, because obviously it's a tablet, and due to the processors inside, it's very power efficient as well. So when you want to crank up the juice, it can crank up the juice, but you get the point. And the fact that, like I mentioned before, it is able to edit 4K 60 videos really well without any issue. And I think that's very important to keep in mind, is that the iPad Pro itself is one of the best things out of Apple right now, in my opinion. My personal opinion is the iPad Pro is probably one of the best things Apple has made in a long time. It's clearly better than the new MacBooks, well, MacBook Pro specifically. It's better than the MacBook Air by a lot, realistically. Like, my opinion is the MacBook Air doesn't really mean anything anymore, and I don't think it has a place in the market. especially when you have like updated MacBooks and things like that. Like, it doesn't really matter because you're already pushing in the price range of MacBook Pros, and the iPad Pro is the good, I'd say it's the good compromise, but there obviously are some limitations, clearly. Like, you know, macOS versus iOS. macOS is clearly more suited for productions because you get access to things like Logic Pro X and things like that. And with the iPad Pro, you don't really have that many good options, but with the options you are presented, they are some really good standards in terms of editing video on the go. Like, Henny has posted many videos about LumaFusion, which Henny is a big representative for them because he's posted many tutorials about how to use LumaFusion on the iPad Pro and how to get the most out of it. And obviously, yes, due to the iPad Pro running iOS instead of macOS, which, let's be perfectly clear, if Apple was to ever, and I mean ever, decide to make the iPad Pro run macOS, nobody would ever buy a MacBook. You would never buy a MacBook Pro. You would never buy a MacBook to begin with, ever again. Why do I say that? Because, well, the MacBook Pros, or MacBooks in general, have become so expensive that they realistically don't have any value. Like, I know that macOS is a great operating system. I know that it comes with a lot of benefits, but the iPad Pro is able to match its power for less money. And I think that's something you guys have to keep into consideration, is that if you're getting the same performance for less, why would you pay more? Like, think about it. For the base model of the MacBook Pro, or even just the MacBook Air, I'd say, yeah, base model, you can get a semi-maxed out iPad Pro with about 512 gigabytes of storage. That's a lot. And you already get a lot with the iPad Pro to begin with because it has a lot of good stuff going for it. And I think, especially because it is optimized with LumaFusion, you have a good alternative to edit videos on the go. And the fact that now Apple's coming out with Photoshop on it as well, you know, it has support for Adobe Rush CC. Like, you have a lot of benefits going for you if you're using the iPad. And obviously, yes, as a media consumption device, you know, you can use the iPad Pro. I'm not going to say it's a bad one. It's probably the best media consumption device you can have if you want a tablet. But obviously, you know, we end up running into the question of, why would you use an iPad Pro to begin with? Are you and I think this is mainly where I want to spend most of my time realistically, because this is the question that I necessarily don't want to provide an answer, because I do want to do an episode later down the line talking about the impact of the iPad Pro in audio engineering and sound engineering specifically. And so for this one specifically, for this episode, you know, I think it comes down to identifying what is the best choice for you. Is the iPad Pro meant for you? Or specifically, are you able to utilize the iPad Pro to its fullest? And this is an issue I see a lot when it comes to, I would say, the Pro products of Apple specifically. An example I can provide is I see a lot of high school students with MacBook Pros. Every time I see that, I'm always questioning in my head, why? Why do you have a MacBook Pro if you literally do not need it? If all you're using in my opinion, if all you're using a MacBook Pro is literally all you're using it for is literally just to write notes, you just wasted $1,000+ for nothing. Like, I get it. Some people may get it as a gift and things like that. That's perfectly fine. But I'm saying, if you went out of your way to buy one or even beg for one just for writing notes, you are wasting your money, and you're also not even using that hardware to its fullest, and you probably never will, because like, that's just a reality check, guys. Let's be real here. If you only needed a laptop to write notes, you only need a Chromebook. Let's be honest here. Or realistically, you literally just could have bought like one of the cheaper iPads or something like that. Like, anything would have been better than using a MacBook Pro for just writing notes. Anything. In my opinion, when I look at the MacBook Pro specifically, the MacBook Pros, in the hands of professionals or even people that like doing video editing, can be utilized to its fullest potential. High school students nor college students will utilize a MacBook Pro to its fullest. They will never will. Most of the time, they'll probably damage it. Like, that's just being real. And I know some people will say, Josh, isn't that kind of, you know, over exaggerating a little bit? Isn't that specifying a specific group of people and saying that they don't know how to use it? And I will agree with that to a degree, but it also comes down to using common sense, guys. Like, come on, let's be real here. Why are you spending $1,000+ on a machine you are not going to be able to use to its fullest. Like, obviously, yes, I spent $1,000 on my laptop. My laptop for college was $1,000, and then probably even about like add an extra $300 because of like, you know, warranties and antivirus and things like that. But there was a difference. My laptop is meant to not only it can do my editing. Clearly, it's powerful enough to do all my editing and run all my editing software and things like that. It can game very easily. Games better than my Xbox and my Switch. It can, what else? It can also run my CAD designs, which is kind of the main reason I bought it, because obviously, yeah, since I'm doing computer engineering, I will have to start doing computer-aided designing or CAD designing. And, you know, it's nice to have something that's beefy enough to at least match the computers that are inside the library, because obviously, since I'm not in the engineering college yet, I do not have full-time access or priority access to the engineering labs in order for, you know, running software for electrical engineering, running computer software for coding, or even CAD designing software. I don't have prime access, so that's why I run everything on my laptop, because my laptop can handle it really well. If it can run games, it can run those softwares without any issue. Like, that's kind of just a little bit straightforward. But then we run into the thing is, where does the iPad Pro stand in this? In my opinion, if you don't want to spend money on buying notebooks, or you don't want to spend money on paper anymore, my advice is you can buy yourself an iPad Pro with a good amount of storage. I say about like 256 is probably the max you'll ever need. If you're only going to use it for college and writing notes and things like that, perfectly fine. My opinion is get yourself an iPad Pro, get it with the Apple Pencil, and spend a little bit extra on getting on the paper style screen protectors. So with that, you can actually write on the iPad Pro, and it feels like you're writing on paper. And you're also taking advantage of the 120 hertz display and everything, and all your notes will be organized like on the iPad. So you never have to take a journal, because you'll have every journal there right available with you in just one device. Now, clearly we run into another thing when we start talking about people that want to do video editing. And obviously, in my opinion, if you are starting out and you want to get into video editing, you want to do all these things, my opinion is the iPad Pro is a great choice. In my opinion, it's a good place to start. It gives you a solid foundation because it has incredibly good hardware and it has incredible software as well. LumaFusion is one of the best apps on the iOS App Store to begin with, period. Like, it's better than Adobe CC Rush because you're only paying $20 and you get the full access, and you're not paying like Adobe's, you know, premium subscription. You basically get access to LumaFusion in its entirety, all its updates and everything. And it's incredible because you already have somebody who is doing this for a living, who is posting videos on the internet to show you how to do these things. Any question you could ever ask, I guarantee you can probably find it on Henny's channel. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Josh, what about the limitations of iOS? Like, you know, what happens if you want more storage and things like that? What happens if you want to get further, or say like you want to use extra things? Like, what do we do? And my opinion is I took Henny's advice a little bit, and I looked at a lot of the gear that he uses. One of the main ones was a file hub. It's called the RavPower File Hub Plus. With this little file hub, I download the app on my iPad, and I connect my iPad to the signal that's given from that little file hub, and I go into the app. And when my iPad is already connected to the file hub, I'm able to connect up to a 2 to 4 terabyte drive of my choosing to the iPad without any issue. And I'm able to transfer the files to and from the iPad without any issue. And it's incredible. Like, in my opinion, it is one of the best things money could buy. Like, and it's very cheap too. It's only $40. And obviously, yeah, if you have like an SSD, like obviously I have my SanDisk SSD, which is great. I love it. And I'm able to export files from my iPad to my SSD, and then I can either send them to my SSD back to my iPad or vice versa. Like, essentially I can move files back and forth. Obviously I have to format them in a specific way, but you get the point. I'm able to manage all this without any issue. And then if it comes down to people that want to do podcasting, obviously I'm still going to stand by the opinion an audio interface is a great place to start. But obviously, you know, if you don't want to make that jump and you're only doing it like a little bit and you're not really that serious about it, then a USB mic's perfectly fine. Let's be real. It really is. I love my Yeti. I love it to death. It's one of my favorite microphones. that I haven't had that much issue, and it's able to get me through a lot. Realistically, it's literally the majority I'll ever need. Like, if I ever, if Lord willing, if my show ever becomes huge and things like that, if I'm blessed with that opportunity, then yeah, I'll upgrade equipment and things like that. Like, we're barely just getting our little studio set up during the summer, but you get the point. Is that for podcasters, the iPad Pro is a great option as well, because, well, yeah, you have recording software in there, and then you have effective ways of transferring files with the iCloud or even things like that. Like, you have many options, guys. Like, the iPad Pro, especially because when you buy those little lightning to, well, I think it really just depends, because depending on the iPad Pro you get, if you get the 2017 model that I have, then yes, you would get that little lightning to USB camera thing. You would get that little adapter. And then if you have the 2018 one, then yes, you would have to get a little hub for it, which connects to the side. And it comes down to finding a good hub, but obviously people like Henny have already stated, like, what's a really good hub based on his experience and what he's using. So overall, my opinion still stands that the iPad Pro is one of the best tablets you can buy. And for people that are interested in going into, or more specifically, want to do mobile video editing and want to start YouTube and things like that, and you don't want to have like a big laptop, you don't want to buy an iMac, you don't want to do something that's limited, that's only can be used in one place without any issue. Like, you want something that's able to, you can pack light and you can do anything wherever you want. And in my opinion, the iPad Pro is the best option. It has all the tools you will ever need to do all these things, and you can be professional on it. Because that's one thing that Henny's always stated multiple times, is that a lot of people have told him you can't be professional on an iPad. And Henny has proven those people wrong, because obviously, yes, he has, he's Grammy nominated, multi-platinum. He's a successful engineer is what he is. He's a master at his craft. And obviously, yes, Henny is a strong believer that the iPad Pro will be the industry standard for the music industry. It will be the future. And Henny's doing everything he can to show people and to educate people, hey, you can be professional on this platform. You can be professional with this hardware. Let me show you how to, based on my experience and what I've done and how I'm handling things and how I'm able to work around these limitations that iOS has placed. And I think that ultimately is what I would consider a master of his craft, because he's able to work with whatever he's got and make something out of it. And I think realistically, I'd say that applies to really every engineer. If you are able to take any situation or take any, I'd say, idea that is presented with you and make a winner out of it and be able to do the job right with that idea, no matter what the circumstances are behind it, whether you had a limited budget or not, if you are still able to make a working solution and it is an effective solution for how much you had to work with, then you are a master of your craft, essentially. And I think that's something that, I'm personally going to recommend it. I'm going to leave a link to Henny's channel in the description, and I really think you guys should check him out. If you guys are people that are serious, that you want to jump into video editing, that you want to jump into doing channels or making a channel for yourself and, showing everybody what you can do, or even starting up a podcast or even things like that, or even just wanting, something good for school or even things like that, then yes, my opinion is you should definitely check out Henny's channel and look what he's doing, because the brother's doing some incredible stuff over here with an iPad, bro. Like, I'm not even joking with you guys. This man is doing some of the most incredible work I've ever seen done with an iPad. Like, this dude literally sat down with Ken Lewis. This Ken Lewis, I can't even begin to discuss. This man has 19 Grammys under his belt. This dude is legit a masterclass audio engineer. He is an alpha male when it comes to audio engineering. And Henny made music with him on an iPad. And Ken Lewis actually enjoyed making music on an iPad. And I'm going to quote, I think I'm going to paraphrase what Ken Lewis said in that discussion in that video where he talked about it. And it's interesting because Ken Lewis said, the fact that the iPad Pro has all these features and all this software and all these tools built into it, and it's in a small package, he doesn't believe it. like, obviously, you know, there's other tools out there that are small, but obviously, like, they're much more expensive. They're a lot bigger footprint. And the fact that Ken Lewis said that he would literally take an iPad Pro to the beach with his headphones on and make music right there, that should tell you that there is something special about this. And I really hope that you guys, you know, think about it. Like, is the iPad Pro the right choice for you? If you are a pursuing a career and wanting to be a creator, like, you want to create content, whether it be audio, whether it be video, like, whatever you want to do, like, if this is something that interests you, I would highly look into the iPad Pro. But I think you should always ask yourself the question, is it the right choice for me? Like, if you're a student, should I just invest the money in this or just buy myself a Chromebook? Or if you're a person that wants to start out getting your foot in the water and learn how to make videos, how to edit them, or you want to start a podcast or things like that, you want to edit audio, you know, is this a good investment for me? And I think that's really a question you should ask yourselves. But I'm going to leave you guys with that overall, because I think really this is the best thing I can tell you, is ask yourself, is it the right choice for me? And for me, the answer was yes, clearly, because I obviously knew how to use the hardware to its fullest. I'm not going to say I know how to use it to its fullest, but I think I have a better understanding compared to the average person, I think, because I learned and I listened from the people that knew what they were doing. And I learned, I absorbed that knowledge, I used that information that was given to me, and I applied it to what I'm doing. And obviously, it's working out great. You know, I recorded multiple episodes on the iPad, and you guys have seen it when I posted it on the page. But overall, I'm going to leave you guys with that. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. This is obviously one of my more passionate episodes, because this is something that I have a good connection with, because I spend a lot of time with the iPad Pro. And obviously, a lot of people know that I don't have the strongest bias towards Apple, but when it comes to the iPads, I will have a more, I wouldn't say bias towards it, but I think at least I'm more inclined to go in that direction because I'm familiar with what it can do. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I know that it's been a crazy week so far. I finished my ethics paper. Hooray. We got a math test on Tuesday. I know we're going to kill it. I'm just in a good mood, guys. I'm glad how everything's working out. I got the whole XLR set up now. I got my audio interface. Tell me what you guys think about it. I'm going to post a poll on the Instagram page when the episode goes live to ask you guys, how does the audio sound with the interface? If it sounds any different or if it sounds clearly better. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoy this. I know we're growing more and more. I'm going to post a picture on the page later showing where we're at right now. And it's kind of crazy, guys. Like, I just want to take this time a little bit just to thank you guys for everything you guys have done. Like, thank you guys for downloading the episodes. Thank you guys for listening to it. Thanks for following the show, sharing it if you have been sharing it. It means a lot to me, really. Like, so far, everything's been a blessing, and I'm just completely overwhelmed with the blessings that I've received with this show. I know that this is a dream that I've had for about a few years now, that I talked about doing it, and I always said I wanted to do it, and then I dropped it, and then I picked it up and then dropped it, and now we finally went through with it, and I'm just having a blast with it, and I'm glad that, you know, we get to enjoy this moment together, and we get to enjoy this journey, guys. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you guys so much for listening to the episode. I love you guys to death. You guys take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful week. Bye, guys.